What if you could build a portfolio that isn't trying to predict the next twist in inflation, interest rates, or growth, but is instead prepared for all of them? That's the idea behind an all-weather portfolio. It was popularized by Ray Dalio. But Canadian investors face a different inflation profile, a different bond market, and, since 2022, no official inflation-linked government bonds at all. So the design needs to be different too. In this video, I'll show you the principles behind all-weather investing, the low-cost Canadian funds you can use to build one, and an example portfolio you can adapt to your own needs. And at the end, I'll show you what the long-term returns and drawdowns might realistically look like. In this video, the principles behind all-weather investing, the low-cost Canadian ETFs you can use to build one, an example portfolio you can adapt to your own goals, and what the long-term returns and drawdowns might realistically look like. An all-weather portfolio is designed so that at least one ingredient does well in each of 4 economic regimes, defined by growth and inflation. It holds growth assets like stocks for periods of strong growth, nominal duration bonds for recession or falling inflation, and inflation hedges like commodities and gold for inflation spikes like we saw in 2022. Notice the goal here isn't to maximize return. It's steady, consistent return with smaller peak-to-trough drawdowns. Now, at the time this portfolio was created, there had been 40 years of falling government bond yields, and that boosted bond returns. So you can see why the bond allocation was so high, but I'd question whether that would be a great choice for the future. And there are some problems with this portfolio for Canadian investors specifically, which is what we'll get into next. The UK version of this problem is that gilts run very long duration. Canada's problem is more fundamental. In 2022, the federal government stopped issuing real return bonds altogether, citing weak demand, even though a C.D. Howe Institute survey of institutional investors managing $2.6 trillion found none of them supported the decision. That leaves Canadian investors without a made-at-home inflation hedge in the bond market. The alternatives, U.S. tips, short-term bonds, gold, and broad commodities, don't protect against Canadian inflation as precisely, but they're what we have to work with. Sources: C.D. Howe Institute, Feds need to fix their mistake and bring back real return bonds. 2022 Fall Economic Statement, Canada. Production note: timeline builds left to right. Freeze on the dashed no replacement segment. Inflation is a real hurdle to beat. Since 1960, Canadian CPI has averaged about 3.8% a year, and it spiked to over 8% in the summer of 2022, the fastest pace in 4 decades. Whatever return your portfolio produces, it has to clear that hurdle first, which is exactly why getting the inflation hedge bucket right matters so much. Forget copying Dalio's exact percentages. What matters is the principle of regime balance. Group it into 4 buckets. 1, growth, equities. 2, bonds, plain nominal duration government and investment-grade corporate bonds. 3, inflation-resistant assets, cash and money market funds, short-duration bonds, gold, and broad commodities. And 4, optional, less liquid alternatives like REITs and infrastructure, held through closed-end structures, so a wave of selling doesn't force the fund to dump illiquid assets. 2022 taught 2 lessons. First, duration is a real risk. A long-term Canada bond ETF like XLB fell almost 22% that year, its worst calendar year on record, while a cash-like ETF like Cash.to actually gained over 2%. Second, cash-like fixed income was a more reliable equity hedge than long bonds during a spiking inflation regime, the opposite of what usually happens in a growth scare. Don't underestimate short-duration cash-like holdings in the mix. For the growth bucket, it's now extremely cheap to buy the entire global stock market in one Canadian-listed ETF. All-in-one funds like XEQT, VEQT, or ZEQT hold thousands of global stocks, reinvest dividends automatically, and charge around 0.20% a year. There's really only one world stock market to buy, so the choice between providers matters far less than people think. For nominal bonds, aggregate bond ETFs like ZAG, VAB, or XBB track the FTSE Canada Universe Bond Index, run about 7 to 9 years of duration, and charge under 0.10%. For the cash and inflation-resistant bucket, HISA-style ETFs like Cash.to, PSA, or CSAV pay out close to the overnight rate for around 0.10 to 0.15% a year, or you can build a GIC ladder for the same purpose. And since Ottawa stopped issuing real return bonds, a CAD-hedged gold ETF like CGL.C is one of the few remaining pure inflation hedges available directly on the TSX. Here's one way to put it together, inspired by all-weather but adapted for Canada. 50% in global equities, a bit higher than Dalio's 30%, so a little more equity-driven return can offset less duration risk elsewhere. 15% in a Canadian cash or money market ETF, a strong, low-cost inflation hedge and equity hedge with no currency or credit risk. 10% in Canadian bonds for duration exposure and some expected inflation protection. 10% in CAD-hedged global bonds to diversify away from a purely domestic bond sell-off. And 15% in commodities, split between gold and a broader commodities basket. This is a sketch to adapt, not a formula to copy exactly. One more practical question. Which account should each fund actually live in? The classic Canadian rule of thumb is this. Interest-bearing holdings like cash, HISA ETFs, and bonds are fully taxed at your marginal rate the moment they're outside a registered account, so shelter those in your RRSP first. Equities have the highest expected growth, and TFSA gains are tax-free forever, so that's where your equity ETFs go next. Gold and commodities don't generate income at all. They're only taxed as a capital gain when you sell, so they're fine in a TFSA if you have room, or even in a non-registered account. If you run out of registered room, the overflow goes non-registered, ideally the equity sleeve, since capital gains and Canadian dividends get preferential tax treatment there too. This is a general principle, not personalized advice. Confirm with a tax professional for your own situation. So, what income can you actually expect? Based on current fund-reported yields, this portfolio's blended distribution yield is only about 1.8% a year, roughly $1,800 a year of income on every $100,000 invested. Bonds and cash are doing most of that work. Gold and commodities pay no income at all. They're purely a price hedge. That 1.8% is not the whole return story. Most of the expected total return is expected to come from capital growth in the equity sleeve, not from distributions. And these yields move with interest rates, so treat this as a snapshot, not a promise. What can we expect? In nominal terms, a portfolio like this should look fairly steady, with occasional dips. But investing is about beating inflation, so the number that matters is the real inflation-adjusted line. When inflation spikes, like in 2022, the real value of the portfolio can fall and can take a couple of years to recover, even while the nominal value looks fine. This chart is illustrative. A proper Canadian backtest using index history back to the 1970s would need to be built separately. But the shape, steady nominal growth with sharper real drawdowns during inflation shocks, is the pattern to expect. Important. This chart is a stylized illustration of the general nominal versus real relationship, not a backtest of actual Canadian fund/index returns. Flag clearly on screen, caption baked into the chart image, so viewers don't mistake it for historical data. A genuine backtest, for example via Portfolio Visualizer or PWL or Just Wealth style Canadian index data back to the 1970s, would be a strong follow-up video. The reason to hold all of this together, rather than picking one winner, is diversification. A well-built blend tends to capture a good share of the return from its higher returning ingredients, mainly equities, while lowering overall volatility because the ingredients aren't highly correlated with each other. Gold, bonds, cash, and equities all tend to respond differently to the same economic shock, which is exactly the point. Important. The scatter positions are conceptual/illustrative, meant to show the shape of the diversification benefit, not measured historical risk-return figures for these specific Canadian funds. Caption is baked into the chart image. In Canada, this portfolio belongs inside a TFSA or an RRSP, so you're not paying capital gains or dividend tax along the way. A TFSA for tax-free withdrawals, an RRSP for a tax deduction now and tax-deferred growth. On cost, you can build the whole thing for a blended fee of well under 0.25% a year, using the ETFs we've covered. And on maintenance, most Canadian brokerages support one-click rebalancing. Doing that once a year is probably enough. Many Canadian platforms also let you automate contributions with a standing pre-authorized purchase plan, similar to the goal-based auto-investing plans some UK platforms offer. The principles behind all-weather investing matter more than copying any single recipe. Make sure your portfolio includes all 4 buckets: growth, bonds, inflation-resistant assets, and optionally alternatives, because that's what makes it robust. Then tweak the percentages to fit your own goals, time horizon, and risk tolerance. What would your version look like? I'd love to see the variations you come up with in the comments.